Welcome to Engineering Your Space. I'm Isabel LaRue, your host. Today I'm in this rental apartment that's shared by 3 roommates. It has a really great common living area here, but when you walk into the apartment, there isn't a place to hang your coat or put down your things. And it's missing a little bit of color too. So to take care of that, I'm going to build these 3 wall panels that will add the much needed splash of color, and also include a place for leaving messages, charging phones, hanging coats when you walk in, and even provide some mood lighting for the living room. So let's get started. If you've seen my lighted wall panel episode, the construction for these panels is actually very similar. You're going to need 1/8 of an inch thick hardboard panel like this. It comes in sheets of 8x4, so I had mine cut at the hardware store so that my panels would be 6 feet long by 2 feet wide. Now you're also going to need 2x1s like this, cut into 4 pieces so that it fits along the edge of your panel. Now when you're getting these at the store, you want to make sure that you get ones that are perfectly straight, and you want to check that by just putting them on the floor and making sure there's no curve to them at all. Otherwise they won't work very well for this project. To attach these, I'm going to attach the narrow side to the edge of my hardboard panel. And that's going to give the illusion that my panel is much thicker than it really is. And it's also going to give me this hollow space here in the back that'll be useful a little bit later on. Now to attach it together, I'm just going to use wood glue, but you could also use liquid nails if you want to. You want to line up your 2x1 flush with the edge of the hardboard. Now it's important to clamp it in place to get a nice smooth seam. You can use fewer clamps by placing a piece of scrap wood that's the length of the panel. That's going to help transfer the force of the clamps across the whole panel. For added strength, I put in some screws at the corners, first drilling a pilot hole with a countersink drill bit so I could hide the screw heads with some wood filler. And last is sanding all the edges. So that's the basic construction for all the panels. Now it's time to add some paint for that splash of color that the room really needs. To make cleanup easier, I really like lining the pan with aluminum foil or press and seal. And I used 1 quart of self-priming paint for all 3 panels. I love this color. It's really going to brighten up the room. Now because I have a really large wall to work with, I built 3 identical panels like this one. And whatever you can put on a wall, you can put on these panels. For my 2 side panels, I'm going to install these wall sconces that I made. I'm going to show you a really simple way to install them so that the cord doesn't show. The trick is to make a hole just below the wall sconce for the cord and the switch to go through. Now I use 1.5 inch hole saw bit to make the hole. I covered the surface with some tape, which will help a little bit prevent a jagged edge. Now you're probably wondering how I'm going to turn this lamp on and off, given that I've hidden the switch and the cord behind the panel. Well, there's a really simple workaround for that, and that's to use a receiver and a remote wall switch. You plug the receiver into the outlet, and then you plug the lamp into the receiver. Using an adapter will allow you to control more than 1 lamp. If the cord has to travel outside of the frame to get to the outlet, you can make a notch in the frame. Then to turn on your lamp, all you have to do is use this wall switch here that you can put anywhere in the room, and you can turn your lamp on and off. I love this little gadget. And if you like these wall sconces, I'm actually going to show you how to make them in an upcoming episode. Now the only other thing I'm going to add to the side panels is a simple coat rack that I'm going to make out of this 4x1 that I stained a light gray, and these wooden knobs. Now the construction for this couldn't be simpler. Mark the location of your knobs on the back and drill a hole with a countersink drill bit so that the screw heads will be flush with the piece of wood. Then simply screw on the knob. Before installing the coat rack, I glued a furring strip to the back of the panel so that the screws would have something solid to dig into. Drill pilot holes in the panel and the coat rack and screw in place. So that's it for the side panel. Now there's a nice place to hang your coat and some lighting. But we're not done yet. Now it's time to customize the middle panel. I want to use the middle panel as a command center of sorts for the roommates so that they can easily communicate with each other. So to do that, I installed this glass notice board from IKEA. You can write on it like a whiteboard, and there's also a place to leave paper notes. Now instead of using screws to install it, you can use nuts and bolts like I did here. And by placing a poster behind the glass, it also doubles as wall art. Now the other thing I wanted to give the roommates is a place to put down their keys and stuff when they walk in, and also a designated place to charge their phones and other devices. So I designed and built this shelf/charging station. I built it using 6x1 pine boards, and the construction is fairly simple. I cut my pieces to make my charging station 24 inches wide by 5 inches high. In the middle of the back of the top piece, you want to make a hole where the wires will go through. I'm using an 1.5 inch hole saw bit, and clamping a piece of scrap hardboard on top will help to get a smooth cut. The heat generated from drilling might cause the bit to seize. Just stop, reverse it, and then start drilling again, just making sure that the drill bit is straight. Sand the edges, add some glue, and then clamp the top and side piece together. Drill pilot holes with a countersink drill bit, screw in place, and then fill in with some wood filler. Before putting on the bottom piece, you want to install 2 corner brackets that will be used to hang the charging station on the panel. Screw in place the bottom piece and drill vent holes in it to allow for air circulation and to help the heat generated from the chargers to dissipate. Sand and stain. For the door, I'm using a piece of hardboard that I'm covering with some leftover IKEA panel material, cut about 1 inch larger than the door. I'm incorporating a continuous hinge into the material by bonding a piece of ribbon to the material with fusible tape. The heat of the iron bonds the ribbon in place, and by bending it and setting the crease with the iron, it sets the shape of the hinge in place. Cut the corners of the material and glue to the front of the door, and then wrap all the edges except for the hinge. Cover up the back with more material and stain the same color as the charging station. I made the handle from a spare IKEA Cavardel end cap by removing the post and using epoxy to glue in place a bolt. The cardboard holds the bolt straight while the glue sets. Drill a hole and secure with a nut and washer. Last, you want to nail in place the ribbon hinge, and a magnetic latch will hold the door closed, and a chain secured with eye screws will support the door when it's open. Before installing the charging station, glue a furring strip to the back of the panel for extra support, and then screw in place. Now what makes this a charging station is putting a power bar here on the lower shelf, and to avoid seeing the cord from the power bar, I drilled a hole on the panel so that the cord could go down the back. And then you can just close the door and you don't see any of the mess, and you have easy access to your cables at the top. So that's it for putting together the panels. Now it's time to install them, and then I can show you how it all comes together in the room. I installed keyholes on each side of the frame. Using a template ensures that they're in the same spot for all the panels. Before screwing them on, I used a drill bit to take out some of the wood. This was to accommodate the thicker screw head of the anchors that I'm using. You can also use French cleats to hang the panels, and that will make sure that the panel is stable also. I used a tape as a template to transfer the location of the keyholes onto the wall. Make sure that you use anchors strong enough to support the weight of the panels and of whatever is going to hang on it. I love the splash of color these panels give to the room now when you walk in. Plus, with this shelf/charging station, now there's a perfect spot to drop off your stuff. There's also now a space to hang coats, and even a place to leave some messages. It's the perfect blend of style and function. And with the wall sconces, now the living room also has some mood lighting at night. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and for a complete resource guide on this project and other DIY tips and inspiration, go to engineeryourspace.com. Don't forget to join me on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. See you next time.